Hi guys, welcome back. In this lecture we will discuss few demo applications to understand the working of try, catch and finally blocks. See, I have three variables declared, num1, num2 and sum. Then there is a try, catch and finally block. Now in the try block I am reading two numbers and I am finding out the sum, printing the sum. These are the statements inside the try block. Then comes the catch block. In the catch block, I specified FormatException. This is a class representing the format exceptions. And there should be an associated object. I create an object of the FormatException class with the name E1. We can give any name to the object. Now, inside the catch block, there is one statement which is displaying a message exception caught, followed by a property E1.message. Message is a property associated with an exception. So we are just displaying the message property of the exception object. The message property will give further information about the exception that occurred. There may be the possibility of exception thrown from the try block, may not be also. In both the cases, the statements in the finally block will get executed. Now let's come back to the try block. We need to enter two numerical values for the num1 and num2 variables. Let's consider that for num1 I am entering the numerical value 6. For num2, by mistake, I am entering a string value say 6. In this case, what happens to the program? For num2, the program was expecting a numerical value, but we have supplied a string value. So what happens here? The string value 6 cannot be converted into an integer value. So this statement will result into an exception, and that exception is the format exception. Why format exception? Because program was expecting a numerical value, but we have supplied a string value. The format is invalid. This statement results into format exception. This statement throws a format exception, and that format exception is caught by the corresponding catch block. We can see that this catch block is specified with format exception, so the exception thrown by this statement is caught by this catch statement. Program control now enters into this catch block and it executes this statement. It displays a message exception code and additional information about the exception using the message property of the object E1. So from this we can clearly understand when an exception occurs at a particular statement, the remaining statements in the try block are not executed. Now, after executing these statement, where the program control will jump, the program control then enters into finally, and these two statements will get executed. The finally block will get executed irrespective of the exception. Now consider that you have supplied a proper numerical number here also. Say you have supplied 4 in a numerical format. In that case, there is no exception in this statement. Okay, in that case, the program control will continuously execute all the statements in the try block. There is no exception thrown. So it will not jump into catch. There is no exception thrown. There is no question of catching the exception. Program control will not enter into catch. Where the program control will then go? From this termination of the try block, program control will directly jump to the finally block and these statements will get executed. Okay, then what advantage the try-catch block brings into a C# program? Again, we focus on to the invalid type of data to explain this once again. Consider we have supplied the string data 6. This statement results into exception because it cannot be converted into numerical format. And consider that we were not handling the catch and finally. In that case, what happens? The program control will go to the next statement because there is no exception handling specified. If the program control comes to this statement, what happens? Num1, okay, it's in the numerical format 6, plus num2, it is in a string format 6. So we cannot add a numerical value with a string value. So this statement will again crash. That means the application will completely crash. In order to avoid the crashing of an application, we need to handle possible exceptions. So since exception handling is implemented in this program, when the exception occurs at the statement, it doesn't execute this statement. That means there is no further application crash. It will jump to catch, and here the exception is handled and the application will not crash. So in order to avoid the crashing of an application because of an error, the exception handling is used in a program. Now let's discuss another program with multiple catch blocks. In this program, I am declaring an integer type array with the size as 5. And we know that in this array, the index value varies from 0 to 4. Now, in the try block, I have the statements to read the values into the array element. All these things we have discussed when we have learned array. And then, after reading the array elements, we are displaying the array elements using a for loop. Then, we have two catch blocks. Let's look into the first catch block. In the first catch block, we are handling format exceptions and the corresponding message. Then, in the second catch block, we are handling index out of range exception. Then there is a finally block. Now consider that in this array, when I read the elements of the array, for one of the elements, I am supplying an invalid type of data. Program is expecting an integer type of data, but I'm just supplying an invalid type of data, say 9 in the form of a string. So this is an invalid type of data. It cannot be converted into integer value. So this statement will result into the exception, and you know that the exception is format exception. So from this point, the exception is thrown. So the program control will just jump to the corresponding catch where format exception is mentioned. Program control reaches to this catch and this statement will get executed. Then where the control goes, it will not enter into the next catch because that is not the exception resulted. It is not the index out of range exception. So it will not enter into this catch, but it will enter into the finally, and these two statements will get executed. Now consider another scenario. Suppose you have entered all valid numerical data. The array elements are read. It is created. Now you are traversing the elements of the array and displaying the array elements. Let's look into this for loop for traversing the array elements. I have int I equals 0, then I less than or equal to 5. So this loop will vary from the value of I0 up to the value of 5 because the condition specified is less than or equal to 5. Now consider the loop statements. This loop statement will traverse through each and every array elements, and all the elements will get printed from 0th index value up to 4 index value. Now, in the next iteration of the for loop, I becomes 5, condition is still true, 5 less than or equal to 5. Control will enter into the for loop again. Now, we are trying to access the array element, array of I, where the value of I is now 5. That means array of 5. But we know that there is no element with index value 5 in this array because it has a size 5, index value can go up to 4. But we are trying to access an element with index 5, that is a non-existing element. Index out of range exception is occurred in this statement. So what happens? From this statement, since the index out of range exception is occurred, that exception is thrown and then that exception will be caught by this catch block. Program control will jump to this catch block because index out of range exception is specified in this catch block and this statement will get executed. So we can have multiple catch block in a program with a different type of exception specified, and when a specific type of exception is thrown, the corresponding catch block will catch that exception and the statement in that particular catch block will get executed.